actually tell us the name of the article, because I want to make sure that I have it. I think I added to the article, which what I added to the article was the impact of the DNC. DNC.
Correct. The article on my AEI webpage is called Black and Blue Again, and it's a three-part series. Part one focuses on the recent election of Tom Perez, who was our former Secretary of Labor. He beat out an African-American named Congressman Ellison out of Minnesota, and it was one of the most hotly contested DNC races dating back to the 1980s. And the outcome for me was interesting because it did two things. Number one, it reminded me that that our community, the African American community, has been a strong supporter of the Democratic Party, beginning back in the 1930s, but really solidified in the 1960s moving forward. And that here was an opportunity for the party to elect an African American who's also a progressive to move the party in that direction, and they chose not to. And then I was reminded that, you know what, there have been a number of African Americans who have been in a race to become chair, and we've only had one, and that was Ron Brown. And so it just made me, rethink the concept of black and blue, which symbolically could be when you lose a presidential election, you feel black and blue. There's also the aspect of black and blue in terms of demography, in terms of African American community and votes. And then the third piece, which was published Friday, the black and blue focused on ideology and what would it take for the party, Democratic Party, to become a majority again. So there's a play on symbolism, play on semiotics, but also a real world look at the party today.
Certainly. And where can our readers, it's a very comprehensive three-part article, excellent article. And while we're on the Exceptional Conservative Network, and I'm sure that some of my listeners are scratching their heads, but I do believe of thought, I think that there's a discussion to be had about, the direction of both parties, frankly. While I'm a card carrying Republican and a conservative, I'm also an African American, and I think that there are many presumptions there based on that demographic.
No, I was going to say absolutely. No, go ahead.
Yes, there are. And so I think it's important to have this discussion. And as I said in the opening, I feel that most of us vote our wallets. And I don't know how you feel about that, Mr. Robinson, but I feel a lot of, what happened with this election had to do with economics.
A lot to do with economics. It's also worth noting for my background, I was in my mid-20s. I was a Democrat. I ended up switching my party affiliation, I believe it was 1992, to join the Republican Party. There was the Rodney King riots that took place in Los Angeles. There were a number of community meetings I had attended for, some weeks. And I made a decision that I wanted to make a shift in my affiliation and join the Republican Party. Really three reasons. Number one, I wanted to support the concept of smarter government. Number two, I was a supporter of school choice. And third, tax policy. And so I joined the party, and I've been with the party since. So I've seen both sides of the fence. My wife's a Democrat. In fact, she worked for the Clinton administration some years ago. So I live it internally, but I also understand it politically. And so when I wrote the three-part series, Black and Blue, it was also from, at one time, having been a Democrat, now being a Republican, but at the end of the day, still being someone who's, as you, concerned about politics, what it means for our community, but also our nation. So I agree this was definitely an economics driven election, but it was also about ideology.
Absolutely. And so in the article, in the first part of the article, you lay out three ideas, possible ideas that must guide the Democratic Party to capture the White House in 2020. Can you highlight those for the audience?
One option is to become the opposition party to Trump. And the point that I make there is that's the losing proposition. In part, opposed to Trump, and there are a number of reasons that people hold that opinion, both Democrat and Republican, but simply being an opposition person to him without coming up with a pro-American, pro-jobs, pro-freedom market could make people in the Democratic Party seem like what I would call government-only isolationists. By that I mean every problem we have can be solved by government, other than saying there's a role for government, but there's also times where government, can be a challenge. Second, we have to take a look how we're going to reach out to the working class. The working class, particularly white working class, have shifted away from the Democratic Party for nearly 3 decades. That's something that former Labor Secretary Robert Reich under Clinton said. And if you take a look at where the party's going, we're trying to balance that. And a little different is to make sure that if you're going to go that route, that you do so, but also understand the economics. And it gets more to the article. I don't want to take up more of your time, but those are 3 options.
Right. Certainly. They are. And I really enjoyed reading how you broke that down too. I was like, okay, that makes a ton of sense. It made a ton of sense to me anyway. And you really do. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Of the 3, which one spoke to you loudest?
Of the 3, I would say the one that spoke to me the loudest was the latter, was the last one. Repeat what you said on the last one, but I believe it was the last one that I thought nailed it.
All about the economics,
yeah.
Making sure that
there
it
is.
Go that route, that you speak to people's interests. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That was the one that I said, there it is, right there. Like I said in the outset, that was the one that I thought spoke the loudest. I was like, that's the one. But and I like the Democratic Party has like completely missed it. I don't know if that's the way you're feeling, but that's the way I'm feeling. Like they still haven't gotten it.
When challenge for us as Republicans, and it's something that wasn't in the article, but part of my thinking, is we haven't made a strong enough case for why more African Americans should join the Republican Party. And so part of it is our challenge. Now, I think 4 years ago, when the GOP really was the Republican National Committee created its autopsy on why we lost the election and what we should do differently. There wasn't a great deal of attention focused on the African American community and outreach, other than we need more people. So when you hear policies and programs that you think are anti-female, anti-Black, anti-urban, I can see why people will turn around and say, you know what, I just don't think this makes sense. But then you have the other side of the fence of saying, okay, then your party is accountable for the millions of votes that you give, and yet the lack of leadership in key DNC positions, particularly the key position. So on both sides of the fence, most of my, what was a telling point for me in the 2016 election weren't the African Americans who voted as much as the African Americans I know who voted for Bernie primary. And that was the first glimpse that something is happening within the worldview of a number of African Americans. I said to them, he's not going to win. I want to send a signal. And so on his side of the fence, on the Trump side of the fence, in many ways, 2016 was a signaling on many fronts.
And that's a great pivot into one of the things I wanted to ask you. Another thing I wanted to ask you about the article. Highlight ways in which you think race factored into the election of Tom Perez. And I thought the angle there was very interesting. Can you share that with our audience?
So since 1848, we've had 55 persons of the DNC, and we've only had one African American. Again, that's Ron Brown. However, we had this year likely outcome that no matter who won, it was going to be the first, well, not the first, but the second non-white. That Tom Perez, whose parents immigrated here from the Dominican Republic, he worked his way through college, became the Maryland State Secretary of Labor, then later on had become a director of rights, and then later Obama appointed him to be U.S. Secretary. I'm very clear he had the academic and professional qualifications to be the DNC chair, but I also make the note that his ethnicity also played a factor in the race. The Democratic Party understands political, they look at political destiny, and when they look at the fact that you had a record number of millennials who voted this year, when you look at the fact that 44% of millennials are Hispanic, that nearly 60,000 Hispanics turn 18 every month, and when you look at the demographics in our public school system, very long for you to say, wow, this is the future of the party, choosing a well-qualified Hispanic, that you matter. But I make the same case that you have to say the same things. While African Americans may be a smaller percentage of the American population right now, smaller segment in the public school system, that is given, 85 to the Democratic Party from 1976 to the present, and Black women in particular, over 90% supported Hillary, where white women and Hispanic women did not. And so if you make the case that demography is destiny, you can look at it qualitatively by sheer number, or you can look at it qualitatively by who turns out. And under that aspect, for Ellison, has been the DNC chair.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that, I figured it out as I'm reading this, I found stunning. Listen, and ideology wise, of course, many of us, especially those of us who are African American Republicans, know this without knowing the details. Like we know this generally speaking, but for you to have laid out the very specific stats on that, and especially me as an African American woman, I already want to shake some of my sisters during the election cycle, okay? And now I really want to go back and reshake them. Like, what is really frustrating when you look at that and then you're going, well, what you highlighted earlier, we need to do a better job messaging. I mean, us as African Americans, and that's a separate show. I think we could probably do on that.
And the one thing I wanted to make sure is that nothing that I say about Chairman Perez is any way a pit of Hispanics against African Americans. There's already too much of that going on. I'm simply raising for national conversation that under the concept of black and blue, when the Democrats lose an election, they tend to say, what are we going to do differently? This time was about, quote unquote, healing the party. And you had not only Ellison, but you had an African American woman who was a candidate. You also had an African American man who was the state Democratic Party chair in South Carolina. So there were others there. So it was a historic move in the fact that, again, you had only your second non-white since 1848. And in fact, you've only had 3 women since 1848. So it was a historic moment, but in no way that you could black as much as talk about the ideology of black and blue.
Certainly. And the part that I find perplexing, and listen, I didn't know very much about the history of the Democratic Party as an organization from this perspective, from within. As far as their leadership is concerned, I knew a lot about their ideology, but not this. And I would have thought that they had a lot more diverse leadership. Considering who votes for them.
Exactly. In Number two, well, as well as three, I make a note that you've had African Americans, even now under Perez, the deputy chair go to Keith Ellison. Some of that will consider that a consolation prize. You have some young as well as politically mature African Americans who are in key spots in the DNC in 2017 and before. But I just think, again, I go back to numbers. No other group has given you, since 1976, the largest percentage block vote of any party. African American women traditionally turn out heavy when it's time to get out the vote. And yet, when I did a deep dive into the makeup, you've got one in 148 years, and so it just goes to show that people should definitely do research on both sides of the fence. But there's some telling things in here, and hopefully other people will find it equally interesting.
I know that I will definitely be promoting and telling so many people about the information in the article, because I had no idea this part of thing, and to me it just backs up the other things that we know about the Democratic Party historically, and I don't mean that to bash the party per se, but there are other things that we know about the party historically. Very nice. And I just feel like, you look at a party's leadership, and that is also very telling. And this just supports things that we already know historically about the party.
One thing that I noted, and I watched both the Democratic National Convention and the Republican Democratic Convention, and when Wasserman Schultz had to step down, the person put in her place was Donna Brazile. Now, Donna Brazile is the first African-American woman to manage a major campaign for the two-party system. She was Al Gore's campaign manager. She knows a lot about politics. Was an interim twice, once in 16 and once in 09 when Kane had to move forward. But when when your party is in leadership, being Obama's in the White House, even though there's an election process, there's a wink and a nod that the president's person should get the spot.
Right.
And when President Obama had an opportunity, an African American twice, he didn't. He chose Governor Kane from Virginia, who I know his wife. She was former Secretary of Education of Virginia. He was a good choice. Later became vice presidential candidate. They also chose Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who I've met during my time in Florida, also a very good pick. But here was an opportunity for you to pick an African American woman in particular, and it didn't happen. That's great. But it can't be because we haven't had enough qualified African American women. If you look at the 2016 convention, the CEO of it was an African American woman. Congresswoman Fudge had a leadership role in the convention as well. I even tweeted at one point, once than day one, that Black women helped save that convention. It could have been much more raucous than it was, but they stepped in. They said, "Here's what," and it made a very big difference. And yet, we still don't see African American women. In fact, they've never been chair. All the women have been non-African Americans.
Absolutely. And you know what? I was going to ask you about that, and we're up against a break. I want to talk about that on the other side of the break. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. Our guest today is Gerard Robinson. We will be back in a few minutes.
Brokers use corrupt politicians to turn the world into the city of the blind. Elites fear one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
The election of Donald J. Trump was an amazing victory, but that was just the beginning. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, America the Beautiful has been under a horrendously ugly progressive-leaning attack for decades. The effort to turn the United States into a socialist progressive hellhole is a nonstop effort. Thus, it is more imperative than ever to not sit on our laurels and allow the progressives to continue to destroy the United States through the indoctrination of our republic's student population, in the classroom or even in progressive-oriented churches. For what is taught to one generation dictates the direction the nation takes in the next. The Donald will soon take on the monumental task of dealing with the restoration of the economy, religious liberty, our borders, the protection of the unborn, etc., etc. The progressives are going through stages of grief as they try to bring about unrest, but will ultimately fail. Enjoy the victory, America, but keep up the fight against those who long to destroy your republic. God bless you, God bless America, and may America bless God.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio. The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, coming soon to Ossicles near you. Excelsior.
To the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservative.com.
Okay, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we have with us this morning Gerard Robinson he is a resident fellow of education studies at the American Enterprise Institute, and we are discussing factors. We're actually discussing his article, Black and Blue Again, and the impact of the new DNC. And before the break, we were discussing the fact that President Obama had two opportunities to appoint a Black chair to the DNC and had not done so. And I wanted to ask you, Mr. Robinson, what do you think attributes doing that, to him not taking that opportunity?
So I'll work backward by saying one of the main reasons you choose someone for that position is fundraising, skills and the ability to bring in millions and millions of dollars. It isn't to say that African Americans cannot bring in millions of dollars, because we have, but in choosing a Walter Schultz from Florida and choosing a Kane from Virginia, these are two people who already had experience raising money, so that gave them a leg up. But that can't be the sole reason, because you can have someone in that position who could raise money over time in different areas. So I think part of it was just the practicality of it, given the fact that you are the first African-American president. And while he made it very clear that he was everyone's president, which I'm glad that he said, here was an opportunity to build a cachet for the next generation of African-Americans by having put in, particularly an African-American woman, who could have been in that position 1, 2, 3, or more years, and use that to build a network amongst funders, both millennial and baby boomer, and then rally that into 2020, 2024. I just think it was a missed opportunity to build some of that African-American cachet at the leadership level in the party.
And I'm sure that there are Democrats that would probably agree. I wonder, I'm beginning to wonder as you were speaking, how many people who vote Democrat are actually aware of any of this information that we've been discussing for the last 40 minutes or so.
I would probably say 15%. These are the ones who, like, you and I are interested in policy, kind of the policy wonks. We like information, but most are not. But I would go as far as saying that most of the whites, Hispanics, Native American, Asians, and multiculturals in the party likely don't know this as well. One of the benefits of being in a think tank is we're afforded the privilege to do deep dives like this, so that we can share this with the public and then have interesting conversations. One thing that I found particularly interesting when I was doing the research is in 2001, Terry McAuliffe, who's currently the governor of Virginia, he was a DNC chair that year, and he ran against a guy named Maynard Jackson. Now, most African Americans over the age of probably 45 have heard of Maynard Jackson. He was the first Black mayor of Atlanta. He helped to build the Black middle class in that city, but he also helped to build a multiracial coalition in a southern city that was leading Republican for decades. And he was a candidate, the DNC chair. And Terry McAuliffe, who had never been chair of a local party, never had been chair of a state party, but was a prodigious fundraiser and was liked by the money wing of the party, which included Bill and Hillary Clinton, he ultimately prevailed. And it was interesting to hear what Congresswoman Maxine Waters had to say in 2001, so I could read her quote about McAuliffe. She said, "McAuliffe was appointed without our participation. The time is over when Democratic leaders can disregard the tremendous role of the African American and progressive vote. You've got to be part of the decision-making process." And McAuliffe rebutted by saying, "Don't try to make this a racial thing because it's not." Well, that was 2001. And there were a lot of people saying, wait a minute, we have a mayor and a fundraiser. We think the mayor should win. It was a fundraiser. And then you fast forward to 2005, Wellington Webb, first African-American mayor of Denver, from 1991 to 2003, he ran. And he wasn't running per se on race, although he was, just proud to be African-American. He said, "I'm also a Westerner. The Democratic Party needs the West." And the party said, "You know what? You're right. We need the West. Well, we're going to pick someone from the East." And who beat him? Former Vermont Governor Howard Dean. So within, this century, we've seen a couple of opportunities where well-seasoned, smart, road-tested Democrats had an opportunity to become the DNC chair, and both times they were passed over.
I saw that and I was like, wow. It's in a way, it's really a head scratcher, especially for them to avoid the West like that. What are they doing?
Well, they made the case that Howard Dean, who's done a great job as DNC chair, was a governor and Webb wasn't. Well, you just said about McAuliffe, who had never been elected to office, and you had a mayor. And so we know historically, usually the head state, if it's not one thing, it's another. The West is so important to the state to go either way at this point, still blue.
Right.
But, I'm knowing again that this isn't something new, and that people in the party, regardless of race, should be just aware of the politics that takes place.
So to be clear, you need to have the experience of being an executive to be head of the DNC, but not to be president. I just want to throw that out there. But
no comment.
I'm just saying, just putting it out there. Head of DNC, need to have executive experience, president of the entire United States, most powerful person in the free world, not so much. Ask you, it's just an observation. Just an observation.
No
Let me ask you something. And my final question, you mentioned in part three of the series, that there's there's always a post-election epiphany when you lose. And I would be remiss if and of course, the Democrats lost the White House, but Democrats have been losing quite a bit since Barack Obama was elected. I mean, at this point, the Republicans have a 52-member majority in the Senate, as pointed out by your article, 241-member majority in the House, and we have 33 governorships. So, I mean, there needs to be more than an epiphany in the Democratic Party. And one of the things that your article pointed out is that there could be several. And what are they, if you could highlight them for our audience?
Sure. I chose to focus on 2 election losses just to highlight that since the 70s, when the Democrats have lost the White House, either because they held it and lost it or were unable to regain it, they tend to move to the right. It happened with Richard Nixon in 1972, happened with Reagan in both 80 and 84. And so if we're to look at, where we're going to go now, there are a couple of things that come to mind. One is this, that your popularity in the primaries and Keith Ellison in the DNC race for chair, both of them got support from a left of center base. If you come from a party, a liberal, a moderate, we've got to go progressive. And I'm saying that if I look at the epiphany of the party from 72 forward, it's not going to happen in 2020. They will choose a centrist establishment, and a portion of the wing will be quite upset. Number 2, the party can't win the White House without a strong turnout of women, Hispanics, and African Americans. Those constituencies turned out in record number for Obama in 08 and 12, but not for Hillary in 2016. And Obama's race, as African American, was a factor in the turnout. Does this mean the party has to run a black person or person of color in 2020? We'll see. And the last point, and this is one that we often overlook, is that the white working class did not turn out strong for Hillary in 2016. And their support for the Democratic Party in the Midwest and along the Eastern Shore has been waning for years. The Democratic Party must speak to the needs of the white working class, particularly white men, if they have a chance of winning in 2020. Alienating women, Hispanics, and blacks will be a delicate but a doable. And if they fail to do those 3 things, I think they will wake up again, black and blue.
Yep, absolutely. And absolutely nailed it. And of course, as a Republican, it's my hope that they don't take your advice.
In fact, someone made that question. They said, well, why are you giving them to success? I said, we're all Americans. No matter who's in the White House, blue or red, none of us should be in the outhouse.
Hey there.
I want to see the party stronger, particularly given that the majority of our community is in the party. And if they happen to win, about winning. But it also keeps Republicans, keeps us on our toes, not to become comfortable, not to say that we had this, grand mandate. Trump's win wasn't a Reagan win in 80 or 84 or even a Nixon win. And so we got to keep that in mind. But particularly for the millennials, because they're the ones who can help shape black and blue looks like. Educated generation that we have, they've got access to technology in ways we did not when we were their age, and they got access to capital, and they understand racial dynamics in ways that many of us do not. And so they can help shape it, and I just want to be, as sort of the think tank, I just want to help put other information for us to think about.
Excellent. Excellent. How as we bring the show to a close, please tell our audience how they can get in touch with you, how they can keep track of your articles and get access to your writing.
So if you go to aei.org and go to scholars, just look for Gerard Robinson and you will find my webpage. I publish at least one op-ed a week. Really likely I'll have two this week. I'm also co-editing a book that will come out in April on education savings accounts, the New Frontier for School Choice. So I would say go there, and as I tell everyone, if you need a great sleep aid, go to my website, pick any article, you will sleep and sleep quite well.
Okay, I'm not buying that one, but listen, I look forward to your book. Go ahead. Because of the listenership you have, if you want to just cut paste my website link to your webpage or want to tweet it out, that's also another way for your listeners to find me. I sure will. And please do contact us when your book comes out. I definitely want to have you back on the show when that happens. Okay. Thank you so much for being on the show. I hope to talk to you soon. Absolutely. I want to thank everyone who was listening today. I hope you found that conversation as interesting as I did. I thought he was a fantastic guest, full of information. So now we have the roadmap for the DNC to get back in the White House. Hopefully they will not listen to the brilliant Gerard Robinson. I want to thank everyone for listening. Thank everyone who watched on YouTube and in the chat room. Remember, all of these things are important because it is your money. I will see you on Wednesday.